The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey, you. Yeah, you. Coming to your cordless, everybody. It's Thursday night, September 26, 2024. Welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. I am Jim Peters, and this is episode number 160, 160, if you're keeping score at home. Hope things are well with you. We had a beautiful day here in Minneapolis. The weather has been, it turns out we're going to have the warmest September on record. Now, of course, all these people are going to call up and tell me, it's because of climate change. No, it isn't. It's weather. It's weather. It has nothing to do with climate change at all. It's weather. Got that? All right. Our guest tonight is David Strom. He's an associate editor of hotair.com. He's a regular guest here. Comes on about every 6 weeks or so. I asked him to come on a couple days ago because he wrote an article on Tuesday. This is all we arranged this relatively quickly. On Tuesday, he wrote an article about the fact that we are paying Iran, the country of Iran, billions of dollars for what we don't know because they're our sworn enemy, and yet they are turning around and sending assassination teams to America to kill Donald Trump, and that's verified. The FBI has said that's happening. And then you wonder, like David was saying, well, is that like more than a coincidence, or it's like, is it quid pro quo? Who knows? Anyway, we're going to talk to David. We taped this afternoon, so we'll run that. Okay, and what we got going on here? You can call up after the interview. We're taking your calls at 408. No, I'm sorry. At 563-999-3435. We're taking your calls, or you can call in with your webcam. I got to tell you, we got 2 shows left under this format, and then we're taking a week off, and then on Wednesday, October 9th, we're coming back, and the show is going to look and be formatted completely different, and that is because we're aiming it primarily to radio, and there's a reason we're doing that, but I can't tell you what it is yet. So when we come back on Wednesday, October 9th, the show is basically going to be shorter. It's going to be it's going to be the interviews are going to be 30 minutes max, and we've already been doing that now lately. And David's interview tonight is 30 minutes max too. It's about 30 minutes almost exactly. We're going to get rid of the green screen set behind me. It won't look as good. I'll be honest with you. It'll sound a lot better. So, but if you're into sound, that sort of thing. So that's happening on Wednesday, October 9th. We don't do Fridays here. We're taking Friday off, as we normally do. We got a show on Monday. I think I have a guest. I'm not sure. On Tuesday, we're running a debate panel. We've done this for most of the debates now in this cycle, where we start the show as soon as the debate. That's to be the vice presidential debate, Fred, if you're wondering. We're going to start the show exactly as the debate finishes, which should be around 10:30 p.m. Eastern time, 9:30 Central. That's when it's scheduled to finish, unless who knows. It's going to finish on time. Of course it is. And then we have the month in review panel here, and that would be Don Zuro, Tim Conaway, and Larry Newman. And so we're gonna shoot the shit about the debate, about life and stuff. It's all the 4 old codgers are getting together. It's like it's like, did you see this? So Biden went on The View a couple days ago, and he got a rousing. Oh, yeah, I mean, it was great for him. Fantastic for his ego, I'm sure. He got a fantastic um, exaltation. And at one point, one of the Sarah Haynes, I think it said, "Oh my God, it's just like the Beatles are here." Yeah, right. Sure, yeah, about as old too. Although Kat Tim pointed out on Fox News that Paul McCartney is 3 years older than Joe Biden, and he still does 3-hour shows. Off the top of his head, playing a bunch of instruments, singing all those songs. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think that. I don't think it was like the Beatles. More of the Ruggles, and I suppose that doesn't mean anything to anybody. But yeah, the Ruggles were a parody band by the guy started by the guys who did Monty Python. And they actually put out an album and everything. And actually, the album as music is actually not bad. It really isn't, but whatever. So that's where we're going here. So after that debate panel on Tuesday night, we're taking a whole week off, 7 days, and then we're coming back on Wednesday, October 9th, and we'll have shows on. Our guest on Wednesday, October 9th is Jeff Meyer, and our guest on Thursday, October 10th is Don Zorro from the panel. And the reason I put those guys on those 2 days is we got a whole bunch of new equipment we're trying out and stuff, and so I don't want to have to worry about impressing somebody I don't know, some guest or something like that. So I brought on a couple of the old guard, and so they're sitting in, and then on Monday, what would that be? Hold a second, 11, 12, 13. On Monday the 14th, we're starting with like that for real. We'll have real guests. So not that Jeff and Don aren't real guests, but do you know what I mean? I don't know. Anyway, the reason Jeff comes on is because he's the CEO of Conk News, and they're our sponsor. That's not the reason he comes on, but that is his role. And so here's the front page of Conk News in real time. I've explained this before. I'm going to explain it again, and you should check this out because it's completely free. You don't have to register. You don't have to subscribe. You don't have to log in. None of that crap. You just go to conk.news or conk.com. That's conk.com or conk.news, and you read this. And the thing is, this is different than every other news aggregator on the web because unlike all the rest of them, it doesn't like silo all the articles from one particular news source. Conk uses about over 75 news sources. Last count, I think it's 77. I think I saw, and every 3 hours, their servers go out to those 77 news sites and grab all the latest stories from the last 3 hours, everything that's new, brings it all back, lays it all out, puts it on the front page, all in reverse chronological order. But here's the key: all the stories are mixed together, so it doesn't matter what source they're from; they all appear in newest ones first, regardless of where they're from. So now you can't see by looking at this page I got on the screen here, but the Conk front page is pretty long, and this is basically a one-page website for all practical purposes. I mean, they have a couple more pages. You see them. They have a page of cartoons, all that sort of stuff. But it's basically a one-page website, and so it lays out all these stories with the newest ones first, regardless of the source. So you can spend a couple hours reading this easily, and if you click through, you don't go to an ad page or you don't go to interstitial page or the home page of the website. You go directly to that article, and the headlines are from the article, not rewritten, and the photos, like the photos here, that's me on the right, of course. That's because they sponsor the show. Very nice of them. But the other two photos are from those articles. So this is the closest thing to a real traditional newspaper online. And I'm serious. I love I worked for these people for many years. I love this product. It's fantastic. I use it all the time to plan these shows, and I think you'll get hooked if you try this out. So check it out. And like I said, it's completely free. You don't have to register, log in, nothing. You just go there. It's at conk.com, conk.com, or conk.news. Either one works. So yeah, check that out when you get a chance if you haven't already. All right, so we're going to play our interview here. Our interview with David Strom, the associate editor of HotAir.com. Here we go. Joining us from his home in North Minneapolis extraordinaire editor, associate editor of hotair.com. What am I saying? It's like, I don't know. It's David Strom. Hi, David.
Hi, Jim. That is
Yeah.
Jim Peters, right? I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I mean, are you sort of getting all Kamala Harris on us?
Well, I don't know if you know this, David. I told you, Peters is not my real name. So,
I did not know that.
yes, no, I know
It's
that's
Harris.
true. Well, it's a very long story. It used to be my real name, so I resurrected it. So I mean, seriously, I don't want to get into this because we're just wasting people's time. But yeah, I used to be Jim Peters, and then I was something else, and now I'm Jim Peters again. So it's yeah, that's why no one on the line can find me, and that's good.
Yes.
So I asked you to come on here specifically to talk about an article you wrote, I think, yesterday. And the headline is, I'm looking at it on the other monitor here, why isn't this the biggest story in America? And so the story is, in a nutshell, I'll just recap this, but you tell me if I'm right or wrong, is that we send billions of dollars to Iran, our sworn mortal enemy, and they repay us by ripping off Trump's campaign information, sending it to Biden Harris, and what else?
Well, I mean,
You tell
they
me.
sent assassination squads
Yeah,
here.
that's right. And they're trying to kill him. Right.
Yeah.
And no one's talking about this.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I mean, there's all this election interference from other countries. Germany is out there campaigning for Kamala Harris. The mayor of London is doing that. Vladimir Putin endorsed Harris, mainly, I think, because she's incredibly weak. And Iran is hacking Trump, sending assassins. There's an assassination squad here. And on July 12th, coincidentally, July 12th, the Justice Department, the FBI, which had let this guy in, arrested a guy, an Iranian spy, who was hiring people to kill Trump. And so they let him in on what they called a special national security visa, something like that. He was a known terrorist. He came here to hire people to kill Trump. The FBI knew he was doing it because they were following him around. In fact, they had an informant who came to them saying they tried to hire me to kill Trump. They didn't pick him up until the day before the assassination attempt. So you've got all these bizarre ties to Iran, and nobody's really talking about it.
Well, can you explain to me and the viewers, why are we sending money to Iran anyway? I mean, I understand. This is what I understand from the Obama administration. They had some crazy, ridiculous idea to make Iran more powerful to balance Israel's power in the Middle East, which to me is like the most ludicrous. It's like that's what a 5-year-old would come up with.
Yes.
I mean, it's like that's so stupid. It's mind-boggling. But that was where this started, and these people have sworn, we're their sworn enemies, death to America, and we send them billions and billions of dollars. Even aside from all this crap with Trump and the election, it doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have. I left one thing out, which is Biden's Iran envoy turned out to be an Iranian spy.
Oh yeah, right.
But yeah, now let me give the rational argument that accepts that they're not just trying to destroy America, Obama and Biden. I will give you the foreign policy argument.
Oh, please.
And it boils down to this. Iran, as you said, is a balancer. And in fact was on our side until Jimmy Carter gave it up to the Ayatollah Khomeini and the Death to America crowds. And, they are a wealthy, even today, a wealthy, powerful country. Obviously, both Biden and Obama don't like Saudi Arabia, who is now Saudi Arabia and Israel are now our big allies there. And of course, Iran is going after nuclear weapons. And so they've been trying to bribe Iran basically to become friendlier to us. This has been obviously a remarkably unsuccessful strategy.
Yes. Yes.
And Trump reversed it in 2017 and just squeezed them. And as soon as Biden got in, he reversed back to the Obama policy. And now they're 90 some odd percent of the way to a nuclear weapon. They're funding Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis. So you've got the Red Sea, which is closed. And so, the Suez Canal, everyone's going around the Horn of Africa, which is, of course, driving up prices.
Yeah, right.
And it's a total disaster. And at the end of the day, we've got this horrible situation, and Iran is literally in our country trying to kill Donald Trump. Now, I am not accusing the Biden administration of anything, or the Harris administration, but you would think that someone in the mainstream media would look at all these circumstances and say, gee, this is worth looking into. And nobody is.
David, I am not a journalist, and I don't pretend to be one. So this show is largely made of speculation, and I'm tired of these coincidences. I can't. I understand why you don't want to say that. That they're doing this deliberately, but I will. I said probably. Right. The other thing I should tell you, and this is really interesting. I don't know obviously I don't know if this is true or not. I have a regular caller to the show who says he lives in Singapore, and as far as I can tell from the telephone number, he does. And he says he's an Iranian journalist, and he says he knows for a fact that they already have a nuclear weapon, which probably wouldn't surprise anybody.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, they have been at what they call nuclear breakout for quite a while. They have enough refined, I don't know whether it's uranium or whether they also have plutonium, but to build now 12 bombs is what they're saying.
Well, he said that by October they will have 100. That's what he told me. Now, like I said, I have no idea if this guy's legit or not, but he has the accent, and I know we did call from Singapore. I know that.
Well, I mean, it is implausible. I mean, we think of nuclear weapons as highly sophisticated, but in fact, I mean, they're 1940s technology.
Yeah, that's right. They were sophisticated 50 years ago. Yes. Now it's simple.
Now it is not as simple to miniaturize them. So there's a difference between having a nuclear bomb that you can sling under an aircraft and drop, and having one that you can reliably use and put it on a missile.
Right.
But again, I mean, that technology is 60 years old.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's nothing mysterious about this. There were all those jokes about high school students in the 70s or 80s building nuclear bombs, everything except the nuclear material. And it's not that implausible. I mean,
no, not at all.
It's just not that difficult.
Well, you were talking about, miniaturizing this. I mean, just now this is the new technology where they've got nuclear reactors the size of a semi-trailer. They're they're starting to ship these things across the country, but that's relatively new that they've been able to do that. I have a friend of mine's constantly talking about how come I can't have a nuclear powered car? How come they can't do an engine, about the size of a microwave oven and stick into my vehicle? And the answer actually to that is that, well, the lead protection you need to shield the thing is so heavy you couldn't drive the car. I
mean, there's nothing that says you couldn't do it. It just would be stupid. That's an entirely different thing. I mean,
you got the whole thing full circle. That's fantastic.
So I mean, it's like you're driving around on Montana Highway at 90 miles an hour, and you slap into a semi truck. I'm pretty sure that we don't want to do the nuclear cleanup.
No, I don't think so.
But this is, I mean, doing it and doing it safely are two different things, and doing it in a very sophisticated way is a different thing. But the basic technology is simple.
Yeah, so you were talking about the fact that Iran is a fairly wealthy country. My impression is, and I've traveled a lot, but I've never been to Iran. My impression is, though, that the Iranian people hate the government. by and large. Is that what
I
you
think
gather?
by and large they do.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you go back and look at photographs of Iran and Afghanistan from the 50s and 60s and 70s, these were highly westernized
Yeah.
countries. Yes, this is little Mickey.
Sure.
Highly westernized countries, women were wearing mini skirts, they were going to universities, and Iran today is nowhere near as wealthy as it could be. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's wealthier than North Korea, which has nuclear weapons. The government could certainly mobilize more resources if it wants to than, say, Pakistan. It has ties to actually ties both to Pakistan and North Korea, and of course, Russia. So if they want to build nukes, they certainly can. And why we're playing footsie with them, why we're letting Iranian terrorists bent on killing the former president of the United States, why we have an Iranian spy working in the federal government and one at the Pentagon. Although I wouldn't call her a spy, she's just been highly tied to them, is beyond me. And then you've got all this election interference going on at the same time, up to and including, I mean, they clearly want President Trump dead or at least out of the White House.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a story. I mean,
no shit. It absolutely is. It absolutely is a story. But so to me, the underlying story, the story behind the story is the fact that, and I master the obvious BS here, but you have a whole global enterprise that basically wants to keep the status quo politically because everybody profits from it. I mean, there's, nobody really, we send them billions of dollars. They get into their mosque and say death to America, and they're building bombs, and because somebody's profiting somewhere, and most of the people are profiting are in the US. And so I look at the Biden administration and what's going on here, and it's basically everyone's on the grift. Am I wrong about this?
Oh, I don't think so. I think that's exactly right. I think what's happened over the past 50 years, certainly it accelerated after the end of the Cold War, is that the establishment became the transnational elite. And the transnational elite is in it for themselves. I mean, it's kind of bizarre looking at this presidential campaign because Kamala Harris is deploying billionaires. Mark Cuban is out there. She's bragging that all the Fortune 100 companies are behind her.
Yeah.
She's bragging that the military industrial complex is out there and the intelligence people. I mean, she's promoting letters from all these people who are pushing her as the next president, and they hate Donald Trump. And it's like, well, this is a big endorsement for Donald Trump, I would think, because, I mean, if you look at the past 20, 30 years, I mean, we've been enriching all of those people, and a lot of it, frankly, through war.
Right.
And so, and there's no question looking back at 2019 and 2020, and really going back to 2015, the intelligence community has been doing everything they can to undermine Donald Trump. The FBI leaking stuff. You had the Steele dossier, the Hunter Biden laptop. They're manipulating information. They're running this big censorship scheme. I mean, this is why Elon Musk has been their number one target. It's about Twitter. And I think the only thing that really gives him any modest immunity from that, and it's only modest, is SpaceX. If he weren't really the only way to get satellites, I think he would probably be in jail.
I have a friend of mine who has a brother that works at NASA, quite an esteemed scientist, and he says, we couldn't do the Apollo program today. There's so much bureaucracy here, we couldn't do it, and that's sad and terrible. Where Musk is launching these rockets very efficiently, both cost wise and also
One every 3 days.
Yeah,
Boom,
it's
boom, boom.
unbelievable. He did 199, I think, in 2023 launches. So they're very efficient at it. And yet and you're right, the U.S. government literally needs this guy to get to space because they can't do it. Now they got this Artemis thing they want to do, go back to the moon. Oh God, how long is that going to take?
Well, look at Boeing. I mean, Boeing,
Yeah.
really, they're two Americas right now, two American economies, two American political systems. You sort of got the free states and the blue states. You've got the Boeings and the SpaceXs. I mean, Boeing, their planes are crashing. They can't get to the space station and back safely. The United Launch Alliance is just a huge boondoggle. The Artemis program is a disaster. And frankly, it goes beyond America. I mean, in Europe, Arianespace is complaining about SpaceX. They're trying to find ways to suppress them because they can't compete.
They're doing too well.
Yeah,
isn't that unbelievable? I mean, it's like this is what capitalism has gone to. We don't want you to do well, but you can't do too well.
Yeah. Well, there's I forget whether it was a Roman general. There was some general who was asked about people rising, and he took out his sword and he found he's in a cornfield and he found the tallest one and chopped it off. Everyone's got to be at the same level, and that's below me.
Yeah.
And that's really where we sit now. The transnational. I'm sorry.
Forgive me. Did you write the article on Hot Air this afternoon about the report that came out of the EU about the fact that they decided the primary problem with the European Union is that they're too white and European? Did you write that?
I didn't. That was Beige.
Okay. Yeah,
who was great.
That's absurd. I mean, and they're serious. They're actually serious.
Oh yeah, and it's quite clear that the people at the top. One thing I will say, people say this is a conspiracy theory. It's not. I mean, you can go and look at what they're saying. I mean, all these people go to Davos for the World Economic Forums, confab every year. You've got every president, every prime minister, all the Fortune 500 companies, everybody goes there. Just go to the World Economic Forum website and they'll lay it out. I mean, really what they want is something, sort of modernized communism.
Yeah.
And that sounds weird because they're all the wealthy. But they expect to be the people at the top. They don't just expect it. They are it right now. They own the corporations. They own academia. They own the governments. They own mainstream media. I mean, it's just, I mean, if I was just reading an article in the Los Angeles Times about how, and this was I think the editorial voice of the Los Angeles Times about how they have to get rid of single family homes. And then I read another article about how the build to rent movement is picking up steam. It's all you will own nothing and be happy.
Yeah.
And something like 40% of home purchases in the United States now are done by private equity. Mm-hmm. And because they can deploy cash, the interest rates don't matter. So, the cost to buy a house for an individual is now twice what it was under Donald Trump.
Right.
But they'll buy houses and then rent them to you.
Yeah.
And they'll get all the equity improvements. It's a nice, steady flow of income for them. And, basically their goal is life by subscription.
Yeah. Right. And so you were talking earlier about the Iranians trying to kill Donald Trump, and the fact that it's really odd because we have Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. We have a guy who's one of the richest men in the world who's relating to the working class, and we have a woman who says she was brought up middle class who's relating to the transnational elites. And first of all, I'm astonished at Trump's talent to actually relate to the average working person.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. People that much money usually can't do it. I know that's because he's in construction. I really don't know. You know,
Yeah.
you have any
Well,
speculation on that?
well, I think it's certainly part of that, and I think that there's a certain group of people who, spend a lot of time around the elite, and just have they're repelled. And I think there's some of that from Donald Trump. I mean, there are, and again, this is getting into weird psychologizing, but
Yeah, I love
I
it
mean,
when you
if you
do
well, think about all the recent scandals around the elite. You've got P. Diddy and Epstein. You've got all these people who are tied together. That guy Jay Varma, the public health guy, you know, he.
That's
They're
not.
all into weird orgies and
Yeah,
weird sex, doing drugs and all of that. And Donald Trump is a teetotaler.
yeah,
And so, people pull out photos of him with Diddy, which were all in public. The one thing is he didn't go to a Diddy party because it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And Donald
right.
Trump only likes one of the three, you
Yeah,
know? So, whereas our elite is all I mean, it's kind of bizarre. The sex and drugs are basically literally the opiates for the masses, and they're really the only sacred things for the Democrats now. I
yeah,
mean, what's their number one issue? Consequence-free sex, right? I mean,
right.
that's what Kamala Harris is running on.
Yeah,
And gender ideology, it's all about degeneracy. I mean, this really is the you know the last days of the Roman Empire reborn.
you've been in politics for a long, long time. Have you ever seen or heard of a more lame candidate than this woman? I'm just
No.
astonished. It's like it's and I lost my train of thought there. I can't remember what my point was going to be, but it will come to me. And of course, we don't we don't have the time
You
to
have
do that.
8 minutes.
Yeah, I know. That's right. That's right. I do. I know. But yeah, I don't.
I actually have a theory about this
Yes,
because this
please.
is two lame candidates in a row. I mean, literally almost mindless, right? I mean, Joe
Yes,
Biden,
right.
senile, Kamala Harris, whose ability to think is sort of along the lines of an 8-year-old kid.
Yeah, I would use
Uh,
my adjective would be vapid.
yes, yeah,
Right.
I call her vacuous, so
Uh-huh.
pretty much the
Same
same
thing. Right.
thing.
Right.
And uh, and then Tim Walz is famously not very bright. His wife literally speaks like an eighth grader, not an eighth grader, an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
She sounds like a kindergarten teacher at her best. And so probably the only relatively smart person in the crew is Doug Emhoff. And he's such a beta that it doesn't really matter. So you had Biden and Harris, two vapid, vacuous, thoughtless people. Why are they being pushed forward? Why the idiots? A literally senile person. And I think the answer is obvious. You want someone without a thought or a will because it's all the people behind them.
Right. They're easy
And
to control.
yeah, whereas Donald Trump is the opposite. And
Correct.
even a lot of the things that drive people nuts about Trump, the generals and everyone who work with him, and they were driven nuts. Donald Trump just throws out ideas, right? And his mind is working at 110 miles an hour, and spews a lot of good ideas, spews a lot of bad ideas, throws them out, see what sticks on the wall. And that's exactly what these people don't want. They don't want creativity. They just want a technocracy.
Right.
That's their vision of the good society is a technocracy.
So, do you want to make a prediction about the election or not?
I certainly can. I mean, I think there are a few variables out there. The biggest one being, is it going to be a fair election?
Yeah.
Assuming that it is, just everyone is focused on the wrong thing about the polls. They're talking about how close it is. Look at the 2016 polls and then look at the 2020 polls and now look at these polls. And Kamala Harris is polling about 5 points below where Joe Biden was.
Yeah.
Now, we all know that it comes down to, with the Electoral College, pretty much Pennsylvania. That's assuming that Wisconsin and Michigan are out of Trump's reach. And I think that even that is a question. But I would certainly say that Trump is best positioned, assuming that the pollsters have not 100% corrected their inability to get Trump's numbers right.
Hey, do you think there's any chance that the pollsters are deliberately skewing the information?
Absolutely.
I watched Bill O'Reilly, that Jeff Meyer at Fox News, he calls him my boyfriend.
Yeah.
But, he's pointed this out, and that is most of the polls don't release the gender divide. They will tell, so many Democrats, so many Republicans, so many independents, but they won't tell you men and women. And on this particular election, it does seem pretty much that Kamala is getting the female vote and men are getting the male vote. And like, for example, the NBC poll that came out a few days ago that said she was 4 points ahead had 9% more women. They polled 9% more women than men. And so,
yeah, this is the estrogen versus testosterone election. I mean, it really is. I mean, the gender gap has been growing. But if you look, I mean, and Trump, both candidates have leaned into this. I mean, who would have expected at a Republican convention the presidential candidate would come out right behind Hulk Hogan, who ripped off his shirt?
Right.
I mean, that is about as testosterone laden as you can get.
Yeah.
And Kamala Harris is all about sort of vacuous, emotional word salads, and really the only issue that she's really pushed. She's on defense on the economy, so that she's talking about it. But it all boils down to abortion and birth control, and lying about both of them.
Right.
But scaring the heck out of women. And so, it really is going to come down to who shows up, whether more men show up, because women do vote at a higher rate.
That's right.
Than men. On the other hand, you ever watch Scott Adams's podcast?
No, but I do read a lot about it.
Scott, Scott is arguing that men have just decided to put Donald Trump over the top. I don't know whether that's projecting, but I do think that there's a real sense of anxiety among men that we've just over feminized everything. Everything's about feelings. I mean, Kamala's campaign really is leading into vibes, as if that matters.
Yeah, and the amazing thing is they're basically tied right now. So that is definitely working to a certain extent, even though it's completely irrational, have nothing to do with anything.
Oh yeah, well, and I mean, you've got Kamala's circuits out there and media folks literally saying that it's all about vibes, and she doesn't really have to talk about the issues. The issues don't matter. It all boils down to the fact that I mean, she's got breasts and melanin.
Yeah. I think that Scott Adams is onto something. I really do. I think that that's kind of the way I feel this too. And he's been amazingly accurate in the past.
Yes.
So I'm going to leave this with this, and this is not a question, but you wrote a piece today about why J.D. Vance was a perfect candidate for vice president. I'm going to put a link up on our blog for people to read that. I totally agree with you on this. I mean, we can talk about this for another half an hour, but the problem is people talking about the chaos that Donald Trump brings. But although he does, like you very often mentioned, he does say ridiculous shit. The chaos is mostly manufactured by the media, and it's true with Vance too. So JD Vance, all this talk about him, they're critiquing him on all sorts of stuff. They would have done that with anybody. Right.
I mean, they would
Totally.
have dirtied up, smeared, lied about anyone. So Republicans worrying about, oh, they're attacking him. It's like that's nothing new. He breaks through the other direction.
Yeah, we could do a whole nother story on Republicans too. It's like
Yeah.
because it's like someone's crap, but whatever. David, I can't thank you enough. Really. So
Always fun.
always fun, and thank you. Me too. You take care. All right, we'll see you soon. That's David Strom, the associate editor of hotair.com. Good friend of ours. Now, I announced this at the beginning of the interview, but David is also in Minneapolis like we are. Matter of fact, he lives only a couple miles away from our studio, and we've never met. We talk all the time. We keep talking about getting together, but man, he writes 6 articles a day for Hot Air. 30 a week. It's like it's a grind. People think that writers have it easy. You try coming up with 6, just come up with 6 ideas every day, let alone writing the stories. So he's working, I'm working. You can call in right now, 563-999-3435, or send me a text message, 408-458-5088. It's all on the bottom of the screen here. This is going to be the 3rd show we have left. When we come back on October 9th, Wednesday, we're no longer going to be taking webcam phone calls. Now, this is unfortunate because Talkers Magazine said, and as far as I know, this is true, that we were the first talk show in America to take video phone calls. And we have taken them, but I have to tell you, since we put in the audio line in February, I think we've gotten maybe 1 single video phone call since then, tops. So we've been running the show for a year and a half, and I hate to say this, but this experiment has basically been a failure. I would say it's because it's probably too early for this sort of thing. And also, the other thing I've realized is that people who call into talk shows generally don't want to be identified. So most people don't want their face on the screen. Remember, we had quite a few callers. There is a way, and it's in the instructions on the call-in page. You can call in and, like, for lack of a better term, mute your camera. And we had a lot of people who call in and did that. So that all we got is the audio, their webcam audio. So now when we rejigger the show in a couple of weeks, it's going to be entirely slanted toward audio, although we will still have the video feed because it's basically the only way we can broadcast on live on YouTube and Rumble. So there's going to be a camera, no more of this fancy set behind me, none of this crap. It's just like it's going to look pretty low key or low tech, but the sound will be glorious. And also, now I want to stress this too when we come back on Wednesday, October 9th. We're going to be at a new time permanently. That's 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. We're starting 2 hours earlier forever. So that's a permanent change. So we got Jeff Meyer on Wednesday the 9th, and we got Don Zero on Thursday the 10th. We're still not going to do Fridays, at least not for a while. We might add Fridays; it'll be the last thing. So we're basically instituting a bunch of changes here, and we're rolling some of them out. We're not going to have all of them ready on Wednesday, October 9th, but the majority of them will be. So I got a couple of things here I want to run by you that normally this is what we call part 3. And we're still going to do part 3, but this is stuff normally I should have done that. I was going to do this before we ran the David Strom interview, and I forgot. But this is really an amazing thing here, and this didn't happen until after we taped. We taped the interview with David at 3:00. I don't know if you remember Robert Redfield. He was the director of the CDC, the Centers for the Disease Control. He was Anthony Fauci's boss. Now that's an interesting thing there because he was Anthony Fauci's boss, but he didn't make as much money as Anthony Fauci, and we know that because Anthony Fauci, when he's no longer in the government, no longer working for the Fed, well, he's retired. But when he did, he was the single highest paid person in the entire federal government. I think when he retired, he was getting paid $435,000 a year. He was getting paid more money than the president. I mean, it's really, and that was because he'd been doing it forever. I mean, it's mind boggling. This guy was he was not the director of the CDC. He was the director of the National Institute for Infectious Diseases, which is a subset of the CDC. And he did that job. He wasn't in the National Institute for Infectious Diseases for 37 years. He was the head of it for 37 years. Unbelievable. So he had enormous seniority. I mean, there's 4 million people that work for the government of the United States, and that's not even including the people in the military. There's a couple million more there, and he got paid more than any other single person. So anyway, Robert Redfield was his boss, and he also retired. And today, this is really amazing. He not only endorsed Donald Trump, but he came out to admit that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., which was basically dumped on this guy for years, I mean, mercilessly attacked him, mercilessly. He posted this publicly and apparently actually called Robert Kennedy and told him this personally, that he was right about everything. When you stop to think about that, so this guy obviously did this out of guilt, and apparently him and Kennedy went to lunch. They had lunch together. So is this guy just trying to burden his soul here? And then the other question is, well, was he misguided? Was he wrong? Was he lying? What happened? Why did he do this? I mean, this guy should write a book, because I would buy it and read it. I'd be curious to know. And I always had the impression this guy was a good guy, even though I know why Kennedy was after his ass. I don't know. This whole thing is so messed up with COVID. It's just, David Strom and I were talking. If first of all, they got a real problem here, because now, when it comes to these medical issues, the majority of the public doesn't trust the government. So and COVID was not really a pandemic disease. It really wasn't. I mean, like I was telling David, the thing is, if you're over 70, it was coming to kill you. That's really true. But if you're under 50, there was basically no pandemic. Nope. I mean, he said this, and I'd have to check, but I'm sure he's right, because I checked previous years that more people die from the flu than from COVID. And that was actually true even at the height of the COVID pandemic until the very end. More people in America were dying from the flu than from COVID, and no one gave a crap. So the problem now is that if this happens again, or we have a real problem with a real disease that's wiping people out, now the public won't listen to the government. And if the government says, no, we really do have to, lock down or whatever it is, no, now people are going to say, no, go screw yourself. They are. And I got to admit, I'd be one of them. I would. I don't, the other thing we were talking about, David, and I mentioned this on the show quite a few times, and that is now the Cleveland Clinic, which along with the Mayo Clinic from Rochester, Minnesota, is probably the two single biggest or most trusted medical institutions in America, right? So the Cleveland Clinic, they did a retrospective study. They used 50,000 people in this survey. And the basic thing they want to find out is what effect the vaccine, these are the vaccine boosters, not the actual vaccines themselves, but what the effect the vaccine boosters had on COVID. And they actually came to the conclusion that if you had a vaccine booster, if you were boosted, you had a greater chance of getting COVID than if you didn't, which means that the booster shots were complete and total failure. That's what that means. And it's hard to, I mean, I have good liberal friends that got every single booster shot. Now I got the original 2 vaccinations, the 2-shot vaccination. I got Moderna, and I thought, okay, this is great, because yeah, I've been vaccinated all my life. It's worked out for me. I don't have any problem with it. Don't have any allergies to the shots or any of that sort of thing. So I went in February of 21. I went and I got my vaccinations, and then about 2 months later, around April, they're saying, "Well, now you need a booster shot," and I'm thinking, "Well, why? I've never needed more than 2 vaccinations in 1 year for anything, and I'm 68 freaking years old. I mean, I've been getting these shots since I was a little kid, you know, and I just happen to have a doctor's appointment scheduled with my family doctor. I have a great family doctor. She probably doesn't want to be associated with the show, so I'm not going to name her, but she's fantastic. And I said to her, I said, well, Laura, what's going on here? They say I need a booster shot. I've never needed one for anything before. And she says to me, she says, well, Jim, I got to be honest with you. We're wondering the same thing. Well, okay, all bets are off. If the doctor doesn't know I should have one, okay, fine. And I didn't get one after that. And I'm kind of glad I didn't. I ended up getting COVID really, really late. I mean, I can't remember when it was, but way after we were basically out of this. And I got COVID, and for one night, I was deathly sick. I mean, it was pretty bad. And I went to sleep that night and woke up. I felt completely fine. I don't know. This has happened to me before. I don't know what it is with me, but yeah, the viruses seem to come and go. Okay, so it lasted about 12 hours tops. But yeah, so I mean, this is Robert Redfield. He said he's endorsing Trump. He said the primary reason he's endorsing Trump is because Robert F. Kennedy is now on his team. He said that. So this is all this. There's never been an election in American history like this. Never. I mean, there's so many exceptions here and unique situations is mind-boggling. All right, the other thing that's happened here. Now we had Murray Sabrin, the economist, on the show like 10 days ago, and the reason I brought him on the show is because supposedly, and this is now a Thursday. This would be, I think, 3 or 4 Thursdays ago. I don't have a calendar in front of me. That the debt payments on the national debt to the United States hit $1 trillion annually for the first time. We are paying $1 trillion in interest payments on our debt. $1 trillion. Nothing to sneeze at. Now, the other thing that came out just a few days ago about the same thing is that the amount of money we're paying on that, the actual national debt itself is now 100% of our gross national product. So now I don't know. Now this is not how I figured. I don't know if it surpassed it. The last I heard, the national debt was $37 trillion, and supposedly the the all right, hold no. Oh, Jesus. Yeah. The national debt is $37 trillion. And the gross national product of the United States is $29 trillion. That's all the money everybody makes everywhere. We got that. That's the entire generative financial output of the entire US. Anything is about $29 trillion. Now that's less than 37 trillion. So I don't know how they're figuring this out, but apparently in this calculation, it's 100% of the GDP. And now only time that's ever happened in U.S. history is at the end of World War II, when we basically went into hoc to finance the war, which everyone considered was a worthy cause, and we're glad we did it. And we got out of that fairly quick too, in terms of debt. Now, mind-boggling, you know. So if you're thinking about voting for Kamala Harris, just understand this. The Biden-Harris administration created this inflation. No matter what they say, they created this. And they did this by printing a boatload of money that was basically worthless. And they did that right after Joe was inaugurated. So you could make, economists have argued, most of them, and I think successfully, that there were, the Trump administration did put in some stimulus packages, right? And they worked. And that should have been the end of it. And then Joe came along and printed up $1.7 trillion to add to it that was basically not necessary. It was basically a way of giving money to all his friends. That's basically the way it was. And the thing is, that money was not really backed up with any labor or anything else. And so that caused inflation because it was money, worthless money stuck into the system. Now, a freshman economics student in any reasonable college could have told you this was going to happen. Lindsey Graham was going on and on about this forever, about the fact that this is going to cause inflation, and they're saying no, 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 it won't. And then of course the inflation starts, and then for about the first 6 months it was like, no, this is transitory. It's going to go away. Just relax, don't. And it never did, and that's because it's all BS. I was saying, I'm sitting here in Minneapolis in my office and working in my underwear, and I'm saying, oh, there's going to be inflation. I mean, anybody could have told you this was going to happen. So don't get, whatever Kamala's selling, it's bullshit. That's all there is to it. They caused inflation, and it has not gone away. So it was, at its height, it was like 9.4%. Now it's about 3.5%, but really, it doesn't go away till it gets under 2%. And one of the worst lies Joe Biden's ever told is he said that when he took office, inflation was at 9%. That's complete, utter BS. That couldn't be farther from the truth. It was 1.7% when he took office. And yet, this is kind of getting into the weeds, but you want a little bit of inflation. You want inflation under 2% because that basically, I don't understand exactly the workings of that, but that basically means your economy is doing well because over time things are just going to inflate, and that's exactly what it was when he took office. It was 1.7%. It was not 9% like he says it was. I don't know. I don't know if he's. I personally do not think Joe Biden is suffering from dementia. I think he's got a personal problem. I think he's completely delusional. That's what I think. But what do I know? I'm not a doctor and I'm not a psychiatrist. So, all right, here's something else I want to comment on too. You can call in 563-999-3435. I've decided I really, really hate reality television. My wife's watching this cooking show called Crime Scene Crime Scene Kitchen or something like that. Joel McHale is like trotted out every time they need a smarmy host. And I gotta admit, I'm not insulting him here. He does a good job. I mean, that's his shtick, and he does a good job. And they're cooking on the front of the camera, and it's like, and you realize that Survivor's still on television. I think they did their 46th or 47th season. Now they've been running 2 seasons a year. They're in their 24th year of this. They're still doing it. It's like, it's manufactured drama, and I just don't. There's enough drama in real life. Why do you have to make any up? Well, you do because you need to fill airtime. That's the reason. I gotta admit, I would not want to run a major television network in September 2024. I wouldn't. Uh, nobody's watching, and on top of that, it's getting more and more expensive to produce stuff. The reason they're doing all these reality shows and these game shows, which is basically the only thing in prime time anymore, except for maybe the Chicago PD, and now CBS launched this thing, which is basically like a tame version of Baywatch. The only reason they're doing this is because they have to fill the time. So I had one more thing I want to run by here. Oh yeah, this. Oh, you gotta hold it. I gotta check this link because didn't get this guy's name. His name is Vinod Khosla. He's a legendary Silicon Valley investor, and he is predicting, as I have, which is the reason I'm talking about the story. He's predicting that AI will eventually replace the majority of jobs in the United States. He says up to 80% of all people end up losing their work. And I think that's true. And everyone says the counter argument to this is that, well, people said that for the last 100 years that technology is going to replace people. Has never happened. I think this is different. I really do. That's the reason I'm saying this. I think that we're going to, and he also says the same thing I do, a little differently, about the fact that we might have to come to terms with what he calls a universal basic income. A universal basic income is a stupid idea. A much more efficient way to do this is what's called negative income tax. And then I ran this by somebody. I think it was a caller or somebody, He said, "Yeah, what about people who don't file income taxes?" Well, you make exceptions for those. I mean, I'm not saying, this is not we're not talking about any tried and true formula here, but you can't have 50 or 70% of the populace not out of work because you know what happens? Crime. That's what happens. I've talked about this before. I'm a computer programmer. I spent years working on major league websites, which I will not name because once again I don't want to drag them into this program because people hate me. So, oh man, what was my point? This is terrible. I mean, God Almighty, take me out in the back and shoot me. It's like, uh, I. All right, keep on going, Jim. Just plow forward. So, yeah, people, the problem is, uh, you have crime. If you have people unemployed, all they do. Oh, I know what my point was now. So the thing is, I know about this firsthand. All the Russian hackers have always hacked into computers in the United States. People say, well, they're doing it for money. Well, no, not really. Not most of them. Some of them are. Most of them are doing it because they're bored. And I'm not kidding. They're highly skilled people who have nothing to do. So they just do this just to do something. So, in other words, they're screwing up America and they're screwing up somebody's business simply because they're to alleviate their boredom. And God knows that'll do it. You want to, if you're bored enough, you'll rob a liquor store. You will. And so we can't have this. I mean, this is not, I suppose there's some possibility that people learn to go off and do other things, but there will be a transitory period where we're going to have to figure this out. The other thing I saw that just the other day, this was in Popular Mechanics, is that they're already talking about these brain implants and about how they're going to make humans smarter and smarter, and they will. And I won't live to see this. I mean, I don't think this is going to happen realistically for another 50 years. But and I don't know if I would want it either because maybe because I'm old school. I don't know. I also read an article. I'm also I'm pre-associating here, but this is all kind of relates about AI and the radio business. About a lot of people, especially when it comes to running music radio stations, the DJs you have between the songs that you can get an AI voice to do that right now, and no one can tell the difference. And people are saying, "Well, that's terrible." Well, I don't know. The thing is, they were talking in this article. They're talking about like talk radio hosts or talk show hosts, like what I'm doing here and what Sean Hannity does. Will probably be the last people on the planet to be replaced by computers or AI because it's such an individual human thing, and the idea is to make a human connection with the people on the other end of the set. That it's there's a chance that will never happen, which might be good for me. I don't know, but everything else up in the air. Uh, I tell you what, folks, that's our show for tonight and for this week. Okay. So now, once again, we're coming back on Monday. I think I know who our guest is, but because I'm not positive, I'm not going to say who it is. Tuesday night, we're going to do a debate panel after the vice presidential debate, which should end around 9:30 Eastern. No, I'm sorry, 10:30 Eastern. That's more like 9:30 Central. And we have our usual month of review panel here. Uh, Larry Newman, uh, Don Zoro, and Tim Conaway. So that's what's going on next week. Then we're taking a week off, and then when we come back, this whole thing's going to be completely different. I got to admit, I'm looking forward to it. I'm a radio guy at heart, so I've done television before. Don't mind it, but I'm looking forward to we're gonna get a bunch of equipment here to make my voice sound a lot better, and the callers and all this sort of stuff. And so we're going to spend a week installing that stuff, and it should be fun. So I want to thank you for watching, and I want to thank you for listening. Now, I suppose when we come back on October 9th, it'll be just even though we're going to be running a video feed, it will just be I want to thank you for listening. But for now, thanks for watching too. Really appreciate it. I'm Jim Peters. Good night, Esperanza. Good night, Uncle Donnie, and good night to you wherever you are. You have a nice weekend. We'll see you on Monday. Take care.